Hello, everybody, and welcome to another week where things went weird in Montana politics. You know,
I'm
the
sorry.
music is very
I'm standing up.
upbeat compared to what's going on. And it looked like Nick is joining us. Hey, Nick.
Yay!
Hello.
Hi.
I'm I'm sorry. I had I had my phone on on vibrate for the podcast, and then I looked at my messages and was like, "Oh fuck, fuck."
Whoops.
But
Well, you
Happens
know
all the
what?
time.
We
here,
do the same thing.
well, that's
So, Ali, should we cover the crazy really quickly? And then we'll get to Nick and we'll talk about some fun stuff that's actually cool in politics.
Yeah, let's speed run the bullshit, yeah?
Okay, yep. Here it is. Everybody that is supporting Bodner is saying how that the only way that he could win is if it's a head-to-head race with just him and Alme. And I keep looking at them and going, "That's great," because Alani thinks that she can win in a head-to-head race. But here's the problem: three of you are in the race, and there's only one way to make it a head-to-head race, and that's if Bodner drops out. Because if either the Democrat or the Republican drop out, the parties will replace them immediately because their bylaws say they have to, and the state says they should. So there's always going to be three unless the independent drops out. I'm terribly sorry to have to tell you people this, but that's the way it's going to go. And if you think that he's so goddamn great and awesome, and apparently some people do, and they're people that I like and trust, if he's so great, then it doesn't matter that he's running as an independent. He will get enough votes and it will be fine. So I don't want to discuss it anymore.
Kev's like, I've had it. I'm done with this
Up to,
shit.
up to my goddamn
um.
eyeballs.
Well, I I've I've not been paying attention to this Seth Buckner race, but I can tell you, I I can tell you if he stays in the race and doesn't drop out, the chances that the the chances that the well, I don't know because I would say that the chances the Democratic candidate is going to win in that case goes down goes down a fair amount as long as he stays in the race. I mean, there's two things that matter in politics at any level, and that's party ID and name recognition, and Seth has Seth might have 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 one of those. He does not have this second on on a national level. He would be like a Ross Perot. He might get a lot of a percentage of the vote as the third party, but he's not going to get a majority. That's not going to happen. If that did happen, I believe that would be like the like one of the first times that's ever happened in American politics on any level ever. So I mean it's it's pointless unless you're a Democrat and want the Democrat to win. Then you should probably be urging him to get the hell out of there because he'll just be taking up votes from whoever the Democrat nominee is going to be. But
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the primary frustration is that, this is clearly going to split the vote. Everybody is upset about that. They're trying to whip the herd into shape and get everybody on the Bodner train. And I don't know if it's going to work or not. I really think there are enough people that are just absolutely pissed off by how dirty this whole thing has been from the inception that I don't know that they can get those people on board. What do you think, Kev?
I'd rather not talk about it.
Yeah, he's like, I'm done. I really don't want to talk about it.
Again, everything comes down to everybody saying, well, in a head-to-head race, it's like, yeah, but we can't have a head-to-head race unless Bodner drops out. There's no other way. And so in a three-way race, we're left with this whole conundrum. Now, I will say one thing that's interesting today that Ali brought up is that apparently there's a rumor going around that Tim Sheehy is going to be the Secretary of the Navy. And that would open up another Senate seat that we would have to have an election for. And at that point, it'd be smart for Bodner to drop out and just run for that in that
In the
race because
Navy.
right. Although what's funny is that if he dropped out before August 1st, if he became Secretary of the Navy, they'd just put it on the ballot right now.
Mhm.
And I don't know that they'd have to qualify any other people. So there'd be 2 slots and 3 people running, and who knows?
Yeah, that would be a chance of winning. So Montana is now Idaho and Wyoming. It's a lot less purple than it even was as early as 5 years ago. So I think if he runs on a national level, he's going to get his clock clean anyway. But if he did that, he would have, I guess, his chances of winning would go from negative infinity to
Hey, an improvement is an improvement, man. We're doing something here, right?
He managed to get over the bar. The bar's below hell.
An improvement. Yeah.
Right.
That's like the penthouse of hell, okay? Like, we're moving up in the world, okay?
Yeah.
Where's he at? Where's the penthouse of hell? Okay.
But no, let's talk about the last stuff, because that's where all the fun stuff is anyway.
Oh yeah, I mean, we've got a whole national situation going on with Lady G has now left the chat. Pew, 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 air horn. Just saying. It's been really interesting to see the fallout from that. There's a lot of shakeups. Mike Johnson has gone off the deep end. And
what did I miss?
So I thought for sure, and I came out early, that they would appoint Nikki Haley to take over for Lady G. That's Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham passed away. I did not have that on my bingo card for this year. I was still watching Weekend at Bernie's over there with Bitch McConnell. It's been crazy, but they're gonna keep that body warm until August 3rd, and then they'll let him go. But it's interesting because I thought they would put Nikki Haley in. I thought that would be, I'm not going to say a good choice, but it would be the choice that in that situation, were I on that side, that would be the choice I would make. That's not what they're doing. They're putting his sister.
Not putting. They've put. She was sworn in.
Yeah.
So just dump in just on a procedural question. It's not the appointment of Mike Johnson. It's the appointment of the governor of South Carolina. lineup. The governor actually gets to decide who is the interim. And when I heard that his sister was taking over, that was weird. And then I did, before the show, because we were going to be talking about this, I did Google it, and I'm like, yeah, like, does it make you feel right in the feels? But let's be real about this. Whoever was gonna take over for him in the interview, a Republican for sure. The governor was gonna make sure of that, obviously, and he and like they're gonna have a special. They're gonna have a special election in November, I guess, and his term is gonna in January 2027.
Yeah, they had said that, of course she's only going to share. Go ahead.
I mean, it depends on what you think her role is. I think her role is basically to vote as the senator would have voted, because that is what was going to happen anyway when you have a Republican appointed governor in it that is as red as Carolina. So I mean, I understand there are people on the left side of the aisle that have heartburn about this, and in a vacuum, it would not be great, but given the circumstances and the timeline and the fact, let's be honest, to be a senator, I mean, there are a lot of people in the Senate that have law degrees, for example, but there are a handful of senators that do not. That there's, and you have staffers that basically read all these bills for you and tell them what they mean. If you think that these senators,
what the stance is,
are burning the minute, stay up all night reading all these bills, I got a bridge in Brooklyn that I have to sell you, because these bills are 10,000 pages long and read. So
right?
Yeah, well, there's that. I think she's like the perfect stand-in. But I will say, if they're staying in if they're burning the midnight oil, it's not reading policy. I'll tell you that. Lady G ain't burning. Lady G was not reading policy at night. I can tell you that.
Well,
if she lives alone and is a bachelor, who called 911?
None of those guys are. So
yeah. It's
Fair.
really interesting. Yeah, honestly, I
I
think
don't
his
know.
sister is the safest choice when considered, because people that were up for it early were like Nikki Haley, and she ran against Trump in 2024. Nancy Mace, she ousted herself over the Epstein files, ran for governor unsuccessfully, and has been so horrendous just as a person in
Hey,
general
she
that
tied
I don't
Riley
think they're going to let her
Gaines.
back in the club.
She tied
So,
Riley Gaines for 5th. Mm.
right. So I think it'll be interesting to see,
Has has
obviously, this is just me a stand-in.
Go ahead, Nicholas.
Yeah.
oh oh I just wanted to ask you really quick. As the lady you were talking about like 30 seconds ago that like pushed herself out of the Republican Party, has she been cozy up to Kansas Owens and her bullshit?
I don't know.
I don't know, and mostly because I refuse to follow either one of those two people.
Yeah, sure. I don't know. I mean, I could see it,
Oh,
although
oh,
I don't see Candace
I'm
Owen
asking
really
because Kansas has
wanting Mace
gone
on her team.
freaking crazy.
Yeah, my whole thing with a lot of these people is I don't wish them dead, but I will enjoy reading their obituary.
Like, I'm not trying to celebrate, but I'm also not heartbroken.
Right?
You know,
So
I don't need to be a jerk
Nick,
about it, but I
you're
also
a
not gonna shed a tear.
constitutional law scholar of some sort?
Oh no,
Yeah, Nick's a
oh
poli sci
no,
major.
no. She's over. She's
What? I gotta hype
overselling
you
my.
up, bruh. I gotta hype you
I
up.
I I got a a degree in. I'm not a constitutional law scholar by any means. I did take a couple constitutional law classes in college, and I can I can read legal language and understand it better than the average human. But I'm no scholar by any stretch. But yeah.
Oh, whatever, Mr. Humble over
So
here. Sure, sure.
well
Okay,
was
sure.
was
I'm just a humble guy.
scholar scholar is reserved for the people that actually got legal training and like went to law school and shit. So
Tomato, tomato.
I'll reserve I'll reserve scholar for those people. But
That'll work. It's
I am
interesting.
half decent at it.
I Yeah, I am one of my ADHD hyper focuses was con law at one point. And it's interesting. It's dry as shit, man. I don't know how you do it. But that being said, there are some interesting things going on. And one of the things that I have kind of been in the back of my mind watching a little bit has been about the Fourth Amendment regarding the right to privacy. In my humble opinion, the Fourth Amendment has been neutered over the past couple of decades. I'm not overly familiar with it. I probably should have read it before this, and I have not read it in a while.
Yeah, because it doesn't guarantee the right to privacy. The Fourth Amendment is about illegal searches and seizures, which is literally the government coming after your stuff.
Yeah, but also I think that pertains like when we're talking about, well, I don't know if it does, and that's why I wanted to talk about it, especially with a poli sci major and a con law dude, because how does that affect the information stratosphere that we live in right now, right? Like we're looking at Palantir, who is building basically a citizen database on us for God only knows what kind of purposes, right? We're looking at Leon Muskovich ended up taking all our information last year with Doge to do God only knows what with to develop their AI. And so we have this apparatus of surveillance that is being built into our society. And I'm wondering, where do our rights pertaining to searches and seizures and right to privacy, where does all of that, how does all that fall with those apparatuses?
Well, I'll I'll go first, and then I'll like Kevin over here fill in the gaps from from what from what little I was able to gather from the the involvement in whatever the company's name's called. Yeah, is so they are a private entity and they have government contracts, and specifically with the military and surveillance, so, some of which they've had for a long time, and those contracts have gotten renewed. It is an interesting conversation to have about like what security mean in the internet, because we all go online, we all terms of service on the internet, we click agree, and that's it. And so it's not so much Elon Musk problem as I can tell, as it's just like how does this internet world, how do we navigate that in in an era where we're so we are supposed to have privacy from the government in theory through ablations and numbers. My favorite stupid Supreme Court line of all time. But you could take this all the way back to the Patriot Act of 2001. Is where all this kind of and I just think the rise of the internet into overdrive. Basically, the short answer is this is a private company, and they can basically do most whatever they want. Now, if they have contracts with the government, that's they do. That's going to be interesting, but I don't think the Supreme Court has ruled on the legality of the Patriot Act would be the first start if you're worried about if there's any legal tidbit that I missed in there, Kevin.
I honestly don't know if you missed anything. One of the things that I find most interesting about the Fourth Amendment and its application, especially as we go into this world where everything's digital and everything's online, and so much information is compiled about us in public ways, in private ways. Data brokers have far too much information that they can sell, and they don't tell anyone about how they've compiled it, how they put it together, and you don't have any way to opt out. Um, and Montana has privacy in our constitution here in the state, so we have a little bit, some conflicting different things that are going on. But the Fourth Amendment, what's interesting about it is that it doesn't have any of a, I guess you would say, a reflective um, legal structure on it, because while the government cannot, illegally come and steal your data or steal your home or take your car and that sort of stuff, stop you and take your wallet. The other side of it is, I think, and this is where it gets interesting, and this is something that Congress really should be stepping up to do, is that when the government collects that stuff for whatever reason, for SNAP, for Social Security, for pension benefits for people that worked for the feds, whatever it is, there has to be the other side of it, that they have a constitutional obligation to keep that safe. And when somebody touches that or takes that, that person then has acted on the government's behalf in an unconstitutional manner and should be charged. And that's the part that we're missing in this. And part of that is, the Fourth Amendment is part of the original Bill of Rights. It was written in the 1700s. Late 1700s, but it's not complete for modern society, because the things that we have in modern society weren't even dreamt of at the time. And so, just the concept of having a digital record of who's been paid by the federal government and when they were paid and how much, that really didn't exist. There were checks, like they wrote checks and they kept a ledger, but that was all hand done. And, the concept of a computer wasn't there. The concept of the internet wasn't there. Phones weren't, and telegraphs weren't even there. And so you're dealing with and this is where I get upset with the originalists, these people that are like, well, this is the original thing that the founding fathers wanted. I'm like, yeah, 250 years ago. Things have changed. I don't know if you know this. Things have changed from 5 years ago.
Well, and I think it's interesting too, right? Because part of what occurs to me is that now they can surveil us from inside our home, from outside our home. Whether it's infrared cameras and satellite images, or it's listening through our phones or our devices around the house, they can buy our data. I think it's an important question to be asking, right? Because as we see, the rise of AI and the aggregation of all this data, for Palantir, they're aggregating our data, across all different sectors. They want our medical records, they want our tax records, they want our legal records. Like, they're aggregating everything into one, right? Mm-hmm. But then on the Elon Musk side of it, he just incidentally happened to take the information that he was given privy to as for Doge. Like, there was no contract for him to privately take or secure that information. He just happened to be there and just happened to snag it. You know what I'm saying?
Just happened.
And so,
but just happened is doing a lot of work in that.
I'm just saying, you know what I mean? So it's the idea, I think it's an interesting situation, because there is a measure of search that they can do from outside of your home, inside of your home, inside of your private data. And laws like HIPAA are being challenged every day. We're seeing that on the abortion issue. We're seeing that on the gender affirming care issue. We're seeing HIPAA being chipped away at.
And we're also seeing, the government is not allowed to gather the information via warrant, but they're buying it from data brokers. Is that illegal? And it hasn't been ruled on yet. And it should just be, yes, it's illegal. The government doesn't need that data. And in fact, we should start putting some guardrails on how data is collected and stored, even by private industry, because it's not theirs. My information about my life is mine. And you may have some of it because I interacted with you, but the rest of it you don't get to have. And I'm thinking that, Montana once again could lead the way with its privacy statutes that can kick into our privacy amendment, or our privacy rights in our constitution. Go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
And but see, this is why I kind of wanted talk about the court more broadly is like, that's all good. That's not really the court's job to fix that.
No, it's Congress's.
That's yeah, it's Congress's job. So, but like,
and they're so good at doing their job.
Eventually, well, yeah, because that's the problem. Is Congress has become a dead organ, and they've given all their well, they are a dead organ. They do essentially nothing except pass their legislative power on to the executive, and then everybody gets pissy and signs an executive order. It's like Congress voluntarily gave that up because it's easier to let the president bullshit and campaign for elections than it is to actually do your job and vote on things. And but back to the Supreme Court or the Supreme Court, I'm actually one of these
originalists.
Yes, yeah, that you because I'm that does not mean I'm not in favor of the Constitution changing, and that doesn't mean I don't believe that certain technologies dictate that the Constitution, the amendment has to meet the current day. You just have to. You have to do the best that you can to make the original statute in line with the current circumstances. That is not necessarily the same thing as saying, well, our values on an issue have changed. We have become more enlightened on a certain topic. Therefore, it must be the court's job to then change the Constitution with the stroke of a pen, and that's something I from the courts. If you,
I think that's a really powerful insight, right? Because yeah,
legalize abortion, pass a law, and if you can't get it passed by statute, well, then it's not the courts just give you want.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? Because it's not, we don't necessarily want the court to legislate from the bench. Their job is to interpret the law, to interpret the statute as to how it applies to the Constitution. Does it fall within what the point and what the structure is, of course. I also think that it brings about good questions, though, because here's the thing. The Constitution, yes, is a living document, and yes, it provides mechanisms for change.
Is it still alive?
Great question, right? Because here's the thing, like even though it provides mechanism for change, the problem that I see with it is the country is so big that those mechanisms are unattainable, to a certain degree. I mean, we can't even, at this point, we can't even ratify the ERA from the 1970s. And
Well,
so it's like,
part of that is because even though we have enough states to do it, it's not the parliamentarian, it's whatever for the House.
Won't certify it. It's the last thing. Right. But I mean, that's been going on for 40 years now. And that's a constitutional amendment that's just been sitting on the bench. And it's like, now that the country is so big and there's so many people.
Yeah. But here's the thing here's the problem that I have with originalists, Nicolas, to put it plainly. There is absolutely no reason for our Supreme Court to go digging around in Victorian England to find a reason to make abortion illegal. None. They did that because they couldn't find anything modern. They're like, well, this is what it originally meant. No, it didn't. And more importantly, we don't live in Victorian England. If you're not going to rule on how things are now, get off the fucking bench.
My counter to that, if we're using the 14th Amendment as your reasoning, it was illegal in literally every state, and also everybody thinks that rights get more progressive over time and we get more enlightened. It always go the other way. Theoretically, it's not a one way street.
Here's the ultimate problem that I have with originalists. If you are going to look at the original intent and language of the document, we the people were white, male, landowning people. That's it. So if you're going to be originalist, most of us don't get rights. That's a problem. Point blank, that's a problem. And that's what they did with the Dobbs decision. They went back to 19th century or 18th century England, and they're like, what did the Victorians think about abortion? I don't care what the Victorians think. They ate mummies from ancient Egypt. They aren't allowed to have a discussion about what's healthy and right now. They just aren't. So it is ridiculous to think that that's how we're going to go forward. And we just need an amendment that says, hey, when you rule on something new, you have to look at how it affects society today, because the intent from before was probably wrong. People were terrible back then. And by back then, I mean yesterday. Like look now. Now is more important than yesterday. We live in now.
Well, I think that's I think the fundamental disagreement is that the people from today are automatically going to be more and better than they were the time before it. I mean, that's assumption, but it's not a a, a guarantee. The one point of agreement I will say is that if there's an amendment, I would do amend the amendment per, provision because it is very hard to incredibly difficult. The problem with the you're doing one of your things, and there's no escaping it. We are either doing what that justice thinks is correct, or we are, or the court is now in the doing a a pub a public a, a pity in poll because that's what the living constitution is essentially depending on the case we are
It's interesting also. I agree. It's interesting also because I think that we're at a place where we are looking at, we're finally old enough now to take old precedent and review it and perhaps change old precedent. And that I think is a lot of the struggle when it comes to SCOTUS as well, because you have traditionalists and you have that clause, I don't remember what it's called, where now they have history and traditions clause, where they're supposed to, consider and weight the history and tradition of precedent and the courts and the Constitution, all these things on their decisions, rather than just looking at what's happening in a modern day context. And I think that can be difficult as well, because I think part of the functionality of the Constitution is that it provides for broad change. It was written fairly broadly in general, but now that we've grown so big, it makes it so hard to change it, because to achieve the numbers alone and then to complete the process, there are too many ways for powers that are dissenting to scuttle it, even if it does pass a certain threshold. And I think that if we were to do an amendment, it would be, I would want to amend the amendment process, and I don't know what that would look like, but I think that we are in desperate need of that, because we need to be able to make the Constitution more functional for progression than it is currently.
And then I do have to say, on the other side, I could go with some originalist with, I think we should have one Supreme Court justice for each of the circuit courts. Or if we really want to be originalists, they had two for each of the circuit courts. So that would expand the court to 26 members. Let's do that. But
yeah. That's the thing, is we could expand the court. We could add Washington D.C. and and Puerto Rico as states, and then we would have a permanent Democratic majority in the Senate if that happened, and then we could get we could get all the age that we could want if we got that. So I mean that might actually be a good idea.
Well, I think aside from the party politics of it, I think it would just be the right thing to do, quite frankly. Either, let Puerto Rico and DC, I think statehood is really the only option. Puerto Rico, I think we should give them the option of sovereignty if they want it, over statehood, let them choose what they would like to do. And I think that to expand the courts, at least one justice for each district, I think is the right thing to do. I think proportionally that's important. And I think I am also a fan of set amounts of appointments per president. Like each president only gets to appoint maybe like 2 justices or 1 justice or whatever. And if the seat is vacant, it's vacant until the next president, because I think that in and of itself will help keep the courts balanced, instead of when we're seeing these wild majorities like we have now, and we're coming out with wild decisions that the majority of the country does not like, but that they are finding are okay, like Citizens United or whatnot, or the Dobbs decision, or God forbid Obergefell.
Yeah, and I think what should happen with Constitution or with Supreme Court appointments is that, of course, judges have a lifetime term, but I think they should be a lifetime term at the circuit level. And your circuit peers certify that you're ready to be a Supreme Court justice. And then if the president would like to appoint one, they appoint from that pool of people that are peer reviewed in the circuit to appoint from that circuit to one of the open circuit seats on the bench. There are 26, and you get to serve 10 years as a Supreme Court justice, and that's it. And then you hike your ass back to your circuit. End of discussion. That way, they're not there the whole time. The other thing is, I think with 26 people on the bench, it should be an in-bank review would require all 26 of them to agree to hear something. So that's never going to fucking happen, which is fine. And a full Supreme Court is 9 justices assigned randomly. And that way, the other justices can conflict you out without any question, because there's always spares sitting there. In fact, there's more spares than are active on any case, because that is just the way it should go. And that way we wouldn't have this. This is the session. It starts in October and it goes until they release the last thing in July. And we're all waiting on a Thursday morning. Nope, court's in session year round. Different people are sitting in different cases. It's fine. It rotates through, but nobody's there for 30 years. You don't end up with a problem like Clarence Thomas, where you've got somebody who's literally been grifting the entire time and not conflicting himself out. So most of his cases need to be reviewed because of what he's done, because he doesn't show any of the actual decorum of being a justice. So, I think there are lots of things that we could do to make it better, but a lot of it comes down to Congress has to do their job, because that's where it all starts. They're the ones that control the purse. They're the ones that write the rules. Pretty basic.
Yeah, I mean, I've been consistent. I'm in favor of judicial review, not in favor of judicial supremacy, as Hamilton said in 1978. If the court the court is the weakest branch, because it holds no sword nor will, and if it ever failed to do its job, then it would lose its reason for existing. But the court has been a political football for a long, long time. It's and it's only now that since the Warren Court, since the idea of the living constitution came into being in law schools, essentially, it's only now that conservatives have had a supermajority like they do now. I mean, we've had conservative majorities, but the thing about conservative presidents is if you're trying to pick originalist justices, conservative presidents are like betting 50% with their picks, and Democratic presidents never miss ever. they're like betting a thousand. So even back in the
Really? I
early
mean, do you
2000s,
think,
when it was like,
I don't know, you really think that
yes,
like
even
Brown and Sotomayor are originalists? I wouldn't take them for an originalist. I wouldn't even take Kagan. Kagan maybe a little more so, but not much.
Oh no! Oh no! I'm saying that Democrats are in favor of having a living constitution, and Republicans are in favor of originalists. And I'm giving the Democrats credit. I'm saying when they pick their appointees, they never miss. They're betting a thousand. Yeah. Whereas even when Republicans get majorities in terms of their number of historic, their hit rate is like 40 to 50%. So like for every Justice Scalia or Thomas they appoint a said Jordea O'Connor or a David Souter or a John Roberts who and for the most part, outside of like the Second Amendment and Citizens United, Democrats have won all Democrats have won all the major cases over the last, I would say, 50 years.
Are you talking about like up until recently? You know, because I mean we've seen a lot recently, like since about Citizens United, we've seen a lot of major cases. Gotcha.
Yeah, up until the Trump appointees, the court had been essentially a living constitutional court for the last 40 years before then. So
I think you're right. So I think it's definitely an interesting conversation to have. I think we need to wrap it up there because we've gone our hour. If you guys are cool with that, and can we put a pin in it? Maybe come back to it another time. Would you be willing to be a guest with us another time, Nick?
Of course.
Nice. Well, thanks so much for joining us. It's been great, Kevin. It's great to see you as always.
Always great to see you as well, and it's super fun to talk about something that isn't just all the people pissing me off.
Oh, for real, like something different. And I don't know, I'm kind of a SCOTUS junkie a little bit. I listen to this podcast called 5-4, and I absolutely love it. They go through the decisions that have come through SCOTUS that have been 5-4, and that's why it was funny, Nick, when you said something about like it was my favorite least shitty line from the SCOTUS, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds exactly like them. They're like, we're here to tell you why the Supreme Court sucks.
Oh, I said sarcasm. Well, I said truthfully that it was my favorite stupid line from the Supreme Court. The appellations of the penumbras of the right to privacy. Because what the hell does that mean? And the answer is nobody knows what that means. They just made it up.
But they're quoting it from 1700, so it's got to be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
That wasn't quoted from 1700. Well, it might have been, but they put that in the majority opinion of the Roe v. Wade is that as a right to privacy through nations of penumbra. So they completely pulled that line right out of their ass. So that was fun.
It's interesting for sure, especially when you're talking about such a hot button topic. I have often wondered and just kind of listened to the debate around the Roe v. Wade decision being determined on a privacy basis as opposed to a human rights basis. And I just think it's really interesting. But anyhow, I just wanted to say thanks so much, everybody, for a great show. It was good to see you. Nick, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, Nick, thanks for coming on. It's one of those, we're going to talk about shit, so come back anytime you'd like.
Yeah.
Of course, and maybe next time maybe next time since it'll be my second time around, I'll actually be able to spell the word guest actually correctly instead of panicking and just trying to put something in there so
Fix
I can get on the freaking stream. Yeah.
There you go.
I didn't even notice that. All right, everybody. We will see you later.
All righty, guys.
Bye.